You're listening to the Shipyard Cat Podcast, the unofficial SAFC podcast for fans everywhere.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the pod. We're here today to discuss the 4-3 loss against Aston Villa, and also be bringing you our thoughts on the up-and-coming game on Friday, which we take on relegation fighting Nottingham Forest. To join me to discuss this, we have, as always, Kev, and we've got Robin. How are we doing today, Kev?
Yeah, all good, mate. Over the kind of weird game against Villa, to say the least. I mean, let's be honest, lads, at 3-1, we were all pretty much like, let's just try and keep this as a sort of 3-1 or try and get one back for the old goal difference because it might make a difference. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into it and chew the fat in a minute.
Yeah, indeed. And likewise, Robin, how are you doing today, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Pretty much like Kev. It's a bit of a weird one to dissect in a bit, but yeah, it's all good.
Excellent. So let's kick off straight away. Obviously, that scoreline, nobody predicted, I think, in a million years, or if you did, you are 1 in 5,001, like the Leicester Premier League win. It was a game of first half. Villa came out as we expected, didn't they? Really, they came out wanting to dominate the game, and Ollie Watkins does what Ollie Watkins does. He's trying to sediment effectively his place on that plane for the World Cup. He's proven that. And then as the game progressed, Riggy with his first Premier League goal of the season. We're going to obviously talk about all these goals individually in a moment. And then second half, just before the stroke of half time, Villa turned up again. And then second half, Villa just looked like they're running away with it. And we're like, right, as you said, Kev, we needed to batch down the houses and go, right, 3-1, leave it as that, please, or try and get 3-2 just to see it out. But instead, coming to the 90th minute, we were 3-3. Lads, either of you can just take over. It was just a very bizarre game to see, never mind anything else.
Well, I mean, look, we started absolutely awful. I don't know what they were doing defensively. Just absolute shambles. And after that goal, obviously we were pressing. Rig took his goal absolutely brilliantly.
Uh-huh.
I think we were the better team, in the first half. And then obviously we conceded another one, with, again, absolutely terrible defending. The defending was awful, on all the goals, really, and it was so unlike us. Like you say, going in at half-time 2-1 down after, I think, being the better team in the first half, you think, well, let's come on, let's push here, let's get an early goal, and then we just gave them one straight away, and it, well, like you say, it was pretty much, let's try and keep the score down. We don't want the goal difference to go too far down.
Mm-hmm.
But look, the lads kept playing. And, just summarise it, he made changes. I think he could have made them a little bit earlier. I don't want to dig any players out sort of thing for not performing, but I think that was possibly the worst I've seen probably this season. I don't think he got involved. I think his pressing was non-existent. It was, to me, he didn't have the legs there. He was screaming out for a change. He made the change, and Hume pops up with an absolutely brilliantly taken goal, and then Wilson comes in, equalises, and after that, I suppose I better let Kev speak.
It's exactly that, isn't it? 1-0, you're thinking, we fell asleep. That early in, we're not quite ready, which is unlike us. We're normally hot out the blocks ourselves, but that's a tactic some teams are setting up to do this season. They're not necessarily Villa, but there are teams out there. The first thing they'll do from a kickoff is kick it right to the edge of the pitch for a throw-in near the corner flag in an attempt to try and kind of pen them in. And yeah, for me, it's that fast start that caught us out, and we just seemed shaky. I don't know if the lads maybe put a little bit too much pressure on themselves with the whole, a couple of wins and you're sitting in Europe, and obviously it's well known that we've hit objective one. Objective two is let's see if we can do a top half, and then objective three, I think realistically, is get one of the European spots, be it Europa, be it Conference, be it whatever other ones there are these days. And I genuinely think that's what it was. I think the lads were just wobbly, but we could talk about all day long who could have done things better for those goals. I've seen a lot of social media straight away onto Luke. Luke's to blame for all three goals. But I think, Robin, you put it in the chat at one point. If Riggy tracks his man, they don't score one of them,
Oh, no, it was Enzo. Enzo didn't track McGinn, and, there's a couple of times where Enzo let the man, whether it be McGinn, whether or not be Cash, just, run on the inside of him.
I thought, in fairness, the player that for me seemed to be wobbly was Ronaldo. Whilst he delivers moments of brilliance, he just seemed to be on edge. He was nervous going into tackles. I don't know, he just made some silly little mistakes that you wouldn't expect for a player of his experience. But,
yeah,
you dust it off. Like I say, it's 3-1. I'm thinking, well, this is game, set, match. What was it, 80th minute? 3-1 down. You're thinking, we're done here. That's normally the point where fans tend to leave the stadium. And then,
well, they do up the road from us, it appears.
Well, I thought it was fine. But, yeah, and that's the thing. The lads showed grit. I mean, when Wilson scored his goal, I was buzzing for him because the luck of the draw we normally have, there would have been a blade of grass out of place and he'd have been offside. So for him to actually be onside and to score it, and he does really well with it. Everyone's saying online, oh, well, it's because Martinez slipped. But probably the fact that Isidor's coming at him at such a pace also helped. But there's always a reason why a goal should have happened or has happened because of luck or fluke.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunately what happens right at the end of the game happens. And, I'm sure you want to have your thoughts on what's happened since.
Yeah, that's the situation. Yeah, as you said, that's bringing us to obviously the 3-3 on the 87th minute, and I think we were all probably too stunned to actually say something specifically in the chat because, what just happened? Fast forward, then obviously no less than 2 minutes later again, we obviously get the ball back up the field. Diarra and Talby are 2-on-1 effectively with the keeper. Robin shaking his head at me.
No, I mean, you had the Villa defender closing down on Diarra. You had another defender just to the left of him. And Talby was actually behind Diarra.
Yeah.
That's the goalkeeper.
Yeah. But obviously, it was a potential for a square ball to roll it into an empty net for Talby. But obviously, I think we can speak for everybody. If you see your name in headlights and you think you're going to get that winning goal, you're going to take it, aren't you? You're not going to... It's something in just human nature. You want to be that crowning point of, I'm the reason why we won the match. I see where that's happened. The hate to Diarra is just completely not necessary. There's no need in whatsoever for that. Because what happens if he goes down on Friday night against Forrest, and we absolutely score a screamer from 40 yards? Everyone's going to love him again. It's one of those things. Yeah, Robert, sorry?
I mean, you look at the stick that Enzo got with Panenka.
Yes, exactly.
It's just totally unnecessary. I mean, it's a game of football at the end of the day. Yes, we love the club and we're all passionate. But, the kind of abuse that these players now are getting online, and I mean, I will defend him. I know I said at the time the square ball on at Talby, but looking back on it, I don't think Tabby was in his eye line. He was that far behind him. I think on reflection, when you look at it, it's not as obvious that there's a square ball on for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, personally, I think for a midfielder going through on goal like that, if Martinez wasn't 6'5" or whatever he was, that ball's going in the back of the net.
Yeah.
You know, he, you know, it was a pretty good finish, really. You know, or would have been a good finish. I mean, it was a great idea. It was fingertips that stopped it.
Yeah.
You know, it is just one of those things. Would it have been better another player there, like a Wilson or someone like that? Quite possibly. But look, these things happen. To get it back to 3-3, the lads done remarkably well.
Yeah.
I mean, if he had scored that, we would have, yes, gone on to win the game. But then you think, how would Villa feel after being in control of that game, you know, with 10 minutes to go?
Yeah.
You know, and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's just a bizarre one, isn't it? And yeah, their goal, you look at that and think, could we have done better? Possibly. You know, it was just it was a great ball across though. And, you know, Tammy Abraham got the slightest little touch on it. You know, it's a hard one to lay blame with anyone, you know, unless you cut out the cross sort of thing. But, you know, the lads showed great spirit and fight just to get us to the opportunity to have the chance to win the game. So, I mean, let's give them credit for that. I mean, this is a team that is sitting fourth in the Premier League.
Yeah.
You know, looking to go into Champions League. Obviously, they're in the semi-final of the Europa League. Obviously, that's a way into the Champions League if they win that as well. So, obviously, possibly sixth place in the league could get Champions League if Villa do finish in the top five and win the Europa League.
Exactly. Just before you give your thoughts on the hatred that's not necessary there, Kev, for Diarra, it's the similar hate is what we pointed to Isidore for, remember, when we played Liverpool, because he didn't score that winner. These people have to remember these players are human. People make mistakes. I understand shots and things like that may look simple, but I then beg these people that are always whinging, go and do it yourself in that high pressure situation. See if you can do it.
You've got to also bear in mind for Diarra, he's only 22-year-old.
Yeah.
He's still got a lot to learn. He's a midfielder. He's an attacking midfielder, but he's not going to find himself in that kind of position very often. That's where realistically your Wilsons, your Brobbies, your Mayendas should have been. You know, and that's one of those things where for me, he'll learn from this massively. You know, I guarantee you the next time a ball like that is at his feet and it's a choice of smashing it in the net or chipping a goalkeeper, he's probably going to try and place it. And I think Robin's right. I think if he places that left or right, or even under Martinez, we go on to win that game. Because I don't think that 90, whatever it was, by the time that all got kind of washed out, it's game, set, and match. The only bit I was really quite disappointed with was just quite how much I feel Villa got away with. You know, surrounding the referee was constant. And I'm still of the understanding in this league, only the captain is meant to approach or the victim of the incident.
Yeah.
Because obviously if they've been caught or clipped or something. But it seemed to be that, and fair play, the ref's trying to let the game flow, but he seemed to let stuff slide that maybe should have been stopped. There was probably a couple of tackles that should have been punished that weren't.
Yeah.
And I jokingly said to you lads after the game, you know, there was a foul in the Burnley match, and you know, John McGinn was asking for a free kick because he seemed to go and ask for something after everything. And for me, I get he's the captain, but the referee should be addressing it. You know, Xhaka goes running at the referee and gets a yellow card in certain matches, and yet McGinn seems to get away with a lot of it. But like you say, I'm proud of the lads for even bringing it back to a point where we could have won that game, and you know, they showed real spirit. And I think the confidence boost the likes of Riggy and Isidore will get from scoring their goals like they did, in my opinion, help. I mean, Hume, we haven't even spoken about his goal.
Yeah.
He just absolutely smashed that into the back of the net. and then ran back to the halfway line as if to say, "Come on, let's crack on." He didn't even celebrate it, and I don't think he didn't celebrate it because he didn't want to. In his head, it was right. There's one. Let's go and get another. And he was probably instrumental for us going on like we did, because if he goes and celebrates it and spends 2 minutes jogging back to the halfway line, Villa have got a chance to reset.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of how quickly we moved back into the position of right, let's crack on. Martinez hasn't had a drink of water to reset himself, because goalkeepers do that. Robin, you'll back this up. It's almost like a psychological thing. They'll adjust their gloves, they'll move their shin pads, they'll have a drink of water and go, right, reset. We didn't let them do that. We were like, right, let's kick on.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we were straight on them with the press, and obviously, won the ball, and and Wilson scored. I mean, Hume's goal was absolutely fantastic. I mean, Riggy's goal was great. Hume's goal was good. Wilson took his goal good. I mean, it's just a shame that Diarra never finished a set, really. But look, I mean, it's one of those things. It showed us, to me, how far we've come as a team.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we can, go against these top teams. I mean, not many people have gone to Villa and played like that and or have come away with a positive result. I mean, Villa's home record is pretty decent, and I very much doubt that anyone's probably scored 3 against them this season. I haven't checked at home, but Villa Park's a pretty tough place to go. So for the lads to do that, especially from the position they're in, I thought it showed great spirit.
Yeah, 100%. That's a perfect ending to that, to be fair. As of time of results,
one more thing quickly, Adam, before we move on, I just want to quickly move back to what Kev said before.
Yeah, sure.
And obviously about when they take goal kicks and that, and they just kick the ball forward to get position.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, teams sort of do that, and obviously I think it was Arsenal were probably the first team that started doing that this season. But then you see when there's a goal kick, how intent they are at playing the ball out from the back, and the amount of teams recently that have got caught doing that.
Yeah.
And yet, when you've got possession on the halfway line, you're kicking the ball straight out to give possession back to the people to pin them in, and yet you're quite happy to be pinned in your own, final third, trying to work the ball out. It's sort of the two tactics seem to contradict each other.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just an observation when Kev said that. It just sort of come to me because obviously we had the incident at the weekend with Donnarumma as well.
Yes.
Straight after City had scored virtually, the ball's there. He takes a touch. He doesn't realise how quick it needs to be gone and, gets shut down and a goal conceded. And you look, I don't know if anyone saw the Brighton-Chelsea game as well. The amount of times that Sanchez either kicked the ball out in a panic or gave the ball away. But it's just an observation. Just wanted to put it in where it was in my mind there. But yeah, I shall let you carry on, sir.
No, it's all right, mate. No, it's all right. All I was going to say, though, just to touch base and end on effectively that. So as of current standings, I know we've got a couple of games tonight. Obviously, City being one of them. Funny you mentioned that, Robin. And that's obviously probably going to be Burnley finally nailing the coffin to be relegated. And I think then the title race is on between Arsenal and City after tonight. That's the honest truth. But in regards to us, after that result, it did put us to 11th with 46 points. We are still there with a fighting chance to get the 6th. We are 4 points away. Obviously, Brighton, as you mentioned, Robin, absolutely demoralised Chelsea last night. That was rather an interesting watch. But we move to Forest. If we win that game, obviously I know we're going to get our thoughts on it in just a moment, but if we win that, that puts us 1 point behind Brighton, depending on other results. What are we expecting from Forest due to the fact being obviously their last couple of games? So their second to last game, they won in Europe to qualify for the semi-final, likewise a Villa. And second of all, they've then won they beat Burnley 4-1 quite comfortably, I must add. Gibbs White with obviously a hat-trick. He's trying to prove a point why he should be on the plane to the World Cup. What's our thoughts going into that game? Because obviously it's back at home.
I mean, for me, we don't want them having the confidence that they've probably got. They they know realistically, they're on 36 points at the minute. Tottenham are currently on 31. If they can get themselves another win, they're sitting themselves at 39 points. They're almost making themselves uncatchable.
Mm-hmm.
They're still catchable, technically, so are we. But, for me, it's one of those sort of ones where they've still got fight in it. They're not going to go and qualify for Europe from where they are, but they're probably wanting to get themselves sat well away from the fire, shall we say? Because right now, that white dotted line, there's still a long way to go, if that makes sense. Spurs, West Ham, and Forest are the three that are going to be battling this out now. And I mean, I just want to say, fair play. I shouldn't say it, but fair play to Leeds. Do you know what? Welcome to the pie, because it's always been the thing. 80% of promoted sides go straight back down.
Yeah.
And so far, it's looking like us and Leeds have proven a point that it's not happening. We're in a more comfortable position than Leeds are, and another 3 points would be absolutely lovely to kind of say, right, that's it done for us. Definitely safe now. Even a single point does it. But yeah, I think Forest are going to want to kick on. They're going to want to keep the momentum going in terms of get a good result against us, then try and keep pushing their European games. That's the only way, realistically, I see Nottingham kind of making something out of this season. Is they've got to just keep pushing. They're not on the beach yet. No way are they on the beach. And that's probably the hardest part for them is they get this game out of the way against us, and then they're straight on to Chelsea next weekend. Now, their games don't get easy. In Forest fans' eyes, Sunderland's probably the easy fixture for them. But as teams have found out, we're not going to roll over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much going to echo what Kev said there. I think, Forest are probably looking at this thinking we get one more win and that's probably us safe. I hope it's not this week. I don't think it will be. I think we've got enough to put them in their place, so to speak. Obviously, I know what Kev's saying about mathematically and stuff. I actually think they're safe already. I can't see Tottenham getting 2 wins. That's the thing. You look at Tottenham's running, and they're not going to get the points. I mean, like I say, we're safe where we are. I mean, for us, I think the lads, the next target is to guarantee they finish above them lot up the road. And if we qualify for Europe, we qualify for Europe and so be it. It would be nice. So, we obviously Brighton, I think, and Bournemouth are probably in the box seats regarding that. We're there sort of like they've got the points already and, their goal difference is better.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at who we've got to play, still with, Forest, which not going to affect us getting it, above us sort of thing. Obviously, following that, we've got Wolves, which we've got to look at is 3 points and make sure we get the 3 points. Then Man United at home, which are obviously fighting for Europe. Everton away, which are obviously just above us and fighting to get in Europe. And Chelsea, which have looked an absolute shambles recently and obviously have just sacked Lee Messina tonight. As we were recording sort of thing. And yeah, I mean, what are they going to do? They're obviously desperate to make sure they get into Europe with their wage bill and everything like that. If they miss out on Europe, which is probably what they need, because they need to slim that squad down. But they are going to lose so much money because of the contracts of the players that they put on and the amount of money they spent. So they're going to be desperate. So really, we've got to look at it and say Forest is one of those games that possibly could go either way because of them needing points. Wolves, we've got to look at. We've got to get the 3 points from that. And then the other three, it's, we've got to look at them as, if we want to get into Europe, we've got to win those games. We've got to prove that we're good enough to get that extra competition and, elevate the club. And, we got 5 games left, and it's basically 5 cup finals. We win 5 games, and we should realistically finish in a European spot.
Yeah. It's going to be one of those, isn't it, where we just push on. We, as we've said from the start of the season, we take every game as it is. So just take one game at a time. In regards to, obviously, what you've just mentioned loosely there on Rossini, he's probably just laughing himself to the bank. He's still got 6.5 years on his contract.
There was a release clause that they could cut him after a certain time, and they wouldn't pay up the contract.
There we go then. So they've avoided that bit of the fee, the wage bill if they don't make Europe. But nevertheless, obviously, looking into our team going into that game, are we looking to make any changes, do we think? Or do we think we just keep the likes of start Robbie again or reward Isidore? Because obviously he got a goal.
Well, obviously, I said in the chat earlier on today, I mean, I'd like personally to see Russ in goal, a back four of Mukiele at right back, Big Dan Ballard back in the team, Omar if he's fit. Obviously, he did go off injured, but it didn't look serious. And I think with what Hume did when he came on in the left box spot, I think he should play there. And like Kev said about, obviously, Reynaldo, he didn't look the greatest. Obviously, against Tottenham, he looked a bit shaky at times, trying to get free kicks, which almost cost us if that penalty had stood, which obviously we knew it wouldn't. But, I think the midfield two of such is Siddiqui and Granit Xhaka. I think that's guaranteed. I'd like to see Chris Rigg stick to the right-hand side. I'd like to see Enzo move into the middle. I'm not saying drop Diarra because he missed that goal, but I think Enzo plays his best football in the middle.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see Tabby given the slot on the left. And I'd like to see Wilson up front. Whether or not he's going to do it, I don't know, because obviously when you look at Forest centre-backs, they're quite strong and physical. Mm-hmm. So I think he's probably going to go with Bobby. But I think, Wilson, with him going away and obviously changing his nationality from French to Haitian and him scoring on his international debut, and then coming on and scoring at the weekend, I think his confidence is going to be up there and we might see the best of Wilson again. I think maybe that period where he'd obviously just had his daughter and sleepless nights and stuff had maybe disrupted him a bit more than what we realised.
Pretty much summed up beautifully, mate, to be fair. I think, yeah. Is it unfair to drop the likes of Luke? Probably not. If, like you say, if Ballard's now back fully fit, then, I think he does need to come back into the squad. I can't see them putting Nordy as... I just think the two of them in the middle seem better. They always seem to prefer putting Alderete out there rather than Nordy for some reason, but no, I would agree. Ballard coming straight back into the mix is probably spot on. Can't see them dropping Bobby unless he's picked up a knock. And like you've just said, against their defence, he's probably a better fit because, they like to manhandle you, don't they, Forrest? They're one of them sort of teams that just try and brute their way through, and maybe that's what they need to do, though, given where they're at with the league at the moment. They just need to maybe bully their way through the next couple of games. But yeah, this is one of those, is Alderete going to come and save the day and score again? Because obviously he scored the winner down there, didn't it? Because it was 1-0 at their place. Does Rigg deserve to start? Absolutely. And I think it'll do him the world of good, the confidence he will have from that game. I agree with Robin, actually. I think putting Talby and Enzo on the pitch at the same time would be a bit of a masterstroke. But the problem is they both like to go on the wing and cut in. But, do we go back to the days of Paddy Roberts and Ahmad doing that, where they were doing little triangles around each other, and we see this bit of winging wizardry.
Just causing mayhem from the get-go.
Exactly. But yeah, I think the only thing different really in my lineup to what Robin put out there really is I think Robbie starts over Isidore. Let's take a moment to pay respect to Mayenda, who can't seem to get in the squad at the minute, which is mental.
Yeah. We will see, and obviously we'll probably come to the end. When it comes to the end of the season, obviously we'll give every player their own due diligence and give our thoughts on what each has provided for the team. Lads, since believe we're going to be running short of time now, I just want to grab some predictions from you both and get that. So, Robin, I'll come to you first, please, if I can get your prediction, mate.
I think we're going to win 3-1. I think they'll score. I think they'll have a bit of fight about them. But I think we'll manage the game sufficiently and come away with the 3 points.
Yeah, perfect. Kev?
I can only see it being a 1-0. I think it's going to be a similar result to at their place, but obviously we're going to win 1-0. I think they're going to be tired from the to-in and fro-in of Europe. And just think they might run out of steam. I think they put a lot into that Burnley game as a point to prove. That was realistically a 6-pointer in terms of getting out of the danger zone, albeit against Burnley, so it wasn't really a 6-pointer. But I stick with my mentality there. I think they're going to want to push one more win to, like you say, make themselves more safe than they currently are. Yeah. But I also think our lads are going to take a lot of fuel from the Villa game and push for that win, because that will have hurt that Villa result for us.
Yeah, that's similar to my mindset of it. The lads are going to go out and somewhat play in anger, if that makes sense. Because when you've pulled it back that well to then not win the game, the question you start asking yourself, and the team will ask themselves, what has just happened? What can we do to improve? And obviously you will know they'll watch the video back and go, right, this is the little bits we need to improve on. They'll say that in the Forrest game. So for myself personally, I'm seeing a 2-1 win. I'm on the similar vein of Robin. I do think they're going to come out fighting. They probably will get an early goal. But I think the way we play will be too much for them to handle. And the pace we've got with the youth, they'll not be able to keep up. Perfect. Have I missed any? Oh, the only other housekeeping I forgot to mention, which is obviously is pretty much being fully finished today, is the Welcome to Sunderland sign. That looks like it's all complete. So come Friday, those that obviously go into the game, you will all see it in all your glory. Get all your pictures that you need to, because I think that's going to look quite spectacular. Even though I did like one person's comment saying it looks like they bought two W's and turned one upside down for the M, because it looks so similar. So that was quite unique to me to see that. But other than that, lads, have I missed anything specific?
I don't think I've, mate.
Perfect. Well, let's hope for the big, massive 3 points on Friday, and I'll see you both there. And thanks to everyone for listening in. It means a lot as ever. Any questions, please throw them to us on any socials that you can. We'll answer them as best as we can. And thanks to you, Robin, for joining me.
No, thanks, Adam.
Perfect. And thanks to you joining me, Kev.
Yeah, my pleasure, mate.
Excellent. And as ever, everyone else, we'll see you on the next one.